Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can start here. This is the first puppet forum, Ballard Institute puppet forum of fall 2023 season, and I didn't write everything down, but I'm John Bell, the director of the Ballard Institute, and I'm here with my colleague Emily Wicks, who's making things happen, and our grad assistant Tom Took, and another assistant Reem Bazad, who's back there, and all of the illustrious UConn Puppet Arts students and those who love them, and friends from all over the place. We're here for our first puppet forum, Hamid Rahmanian Song of the North, with director Hamid Rahmanian, who's a really amazing artist. And then for us at UConn, we're really excited because we have Esme Roselle, who's a puppet arts graduate who used to work here at the Ballard Institute. He's really glad he's here. And Harrison Green, who studied in the acting program at School of Fine Arts. And Ray Dondero, who was in the design tech program, I want to say in set design, but no, that's it. And who designed Paul Vincent Davis exhibition here. So we're like covering a lot of different corners of the UConn School of Fine Arts, and we're all glad that they're working with Hamid, doing this great work, which we're going to hear about. Yes, Zachary Broom, and also Kevin Marinelli. Zachary Broom is not here, but Kevin is here, who helped with the design and construction of this. So there's a big UConn connection to this work, Song of the North, which will be performed this Thursday at 7:30. I wanted to say as we begin that we wanted to ask you to sign this sign-up sheet there, which is so important. And we're live streaming this on Facebook Live to probably
dozen people right now.
3 or 4 people.
No, we're up to a dozen.
Up to a dozen. Okay. And I wanted to mention just some other things about the Ballard Institute programming for this fall or the coming weeks. This weekend we're doing 2-day puppet workshops with the amazing Sarah Peaty from Puppeteers Cooperative in Boston, preparing for pages from the Book of Mansfield, a giant puppet pageant that will take place on the town square here the Saturday after next. So we're going to build some giant puppets, we're going to build buildings that will populate the square, flat cutout puppets. Tom Took's writing a rhymed narrative. We're working with some musicians from Willimantic, and Emily's gestures.
The Facebook Live is saying they want to hear you louder.
Okay, good. Okay. I thought it was a gang signs or something.
Oh my gosh.
No, just kidding. So that's going to happen. You're all welcome to come to that 10 to 1, 2 to 5, Saturday and Sunday. You don't have to come for the whole time. Also, our next forum will be, our next, is that the next one, Careers in Puppet Production? No, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay.
We have 2 in October.
2 forums in October.
Rahul here will be with Claudia Orenstein.
Okay, thank you.
On Indian Shadow Theater.
Okay.
That's on October 17th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Then we have another one in October. Anna.
Oh, Anna Krachina, who's just translated, has a new translation of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi that's annotated translation, super interesting about politics and education in early 20th century Italy. Anna Krachina, she's really awesome.
It'll be October 25th at 7 p.m.
Okay, all right. And then we have stuff happening. There's a UConn Puppet Slam on October 13th. There is a family weekend, October 14th and 15th, with performances by Carrie Fowler, was right back there, and also by Tom Took, who's right there. Rahul and Claudia Orenstein will be talking about the work that Rahul is exhibiting here, Shadow Puppets from South India. Claudia is the co-editor of Puppet and Spirit, about puppets and spirituality, and has visited Rahul's family in Kerala. Very interesting writing about that. The 21st of October, I'm just going to go through this because it's very exciting and we want you to come to all of these. Uncle Sleezo's Toxic and Terrifying TV Hour. These are films that our colleague Matt Sorensen has a good bit to do with. This is explicit content and mature themes. And then on October 27th, thanks to our colleague Matthew Cohen, Wayang Tithi, which is Chinese-style wayang from Indonesia, really unusual. With we don't have the name of our artist there. Thank you. And then a forum, November 8th, Careers in Puppet Production with Dana Samborski and Rob Saunders of CJS Workshop. Dana, also a puppet arts grad. We're having a special, sorry? Rob Saunders, thank you. Bart Rocco Burton, the director of the Puppet Arts program, who I neglected to introduce because he's sort of omnipresent. Introduction. Celebration of Indian Performing Arts Night on November 10th with Yukon student groups and that Rahul is helping put on. Pumpernickel puppets from Worcester, Three Billy Goats Gruff and Lion and the Mouse. And Madison J. Cripps, Northeast puppeteer, some of you know, A Slice of Crazy Pie, December 2nd, Winter Welcome, also that day. And then on the 6th of December, a forum with Stephanie Plunkett, curator at the Norman Rockwell Museum, about Tony Sard, related to this current exhibition, Tony Sard Genius at Play, which includes some puppets from our Ballard Institute collections, and then I wrote the introduction to the catalog book, which is kind of super awesome. So, ya basta, and let's get down to Hamid, who is a Guggenheim Fellow and recipient of various honors and support, filmmaker, graphic designer. I'll just read this paragraph. He illustrated and commissioned a new translation of the 10th century Persian epic Shahnameh by Ferdowsi, very famous, very important. Shahnameh, the Epic of Persian Kings, which was a 600-page art book called a masterpiece by the Wall Street Journal, and that became an audio book. And there was a pop-up book, Zahak, Legend of the Serpent King, and Fantagraphics books in English and French. And he won the Megendorfer Prize, which is really super cool. Megendorfer was very interesting, but we won't digress. Speak up. Yeah, Megendorfer, 19th century German mechanical scientist. Let's just talk about Megendorfer for a while. Okay. But Sendak was into Megendorfer too. They had a big Maurice Sendak exhibit. So, Feathers of Fire, Silk Road Ensemble, Feathers of Fire, a previous show, kind of on the scale of Song of the North. And Hamid is just someone who, every time I see what he's doing, it's something new, it's something different, and we're all very much in awe of Hamid's visual work, the way he's looking at Persian literature and creating new ways of sharing Persian epic literature with the whole world. So Hamid's going to talk, and then we're going to have a conversation with our Yukon colleagues. Hamid Rahmanian.
Thank you. Thank you, John. You're very kind as usual.
It's not going to work, right?
No, it's not going to work. You have no.
Should we clap if we believe?
No, hold on a second. We can put. I just downloaded this. Because I was downloading that.
Oh, it's there. Oh, is it 5 minutes? Oh, okay, it's 5 minutes to download. Because I thought we have a, what do you call it, HDMI, but it seems we don't have HDMI.
Does he need?
But it's okay. So, I'm gonna
We do
talk
have
to
an
you
HDMI.
a little bit about.
Emily's on the case.
I'm gonna make like, what is it, 25 minutes for my last 16 years. So let's see how we can do it. Let's start now. Okay.
TikTok version.
TikTok version. So since 2008, I'm sort of dedicated my life into creating a whole new way of looking at the Persian Book of Kings Shahnameh to the West, for the Western audience. Shahnameh, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's the longest poem written by a single poet. In 1010, a poet named Ferdowsi, he collected and put together a millennium-old epic tradition of the Iranian plateaus into 60,000 heroic verses. So this book, it's a combination of many tragedies, love stories, battles. It's like Iliad and Odyssey, but for Iranians. And when I'm talking about Iranians, not today Iranians, the greater Iran, Iranic people, which is from the north of India to almost Baltic Sea. So this collection of a story, it's something that is attached Iranian to pre-Islamic world, because in the 7th century when Arab Muslim came and conquered Iran, they sort of create an identity that is cut away from what Iran was before that. And also they reinforced the language, Arabic language, to the Persian people, which at that point, for almost 200 years, they were very forcefully changing the language. But Shahnameh kept the Persian language alive. Unlike the ex-Roman territory, like Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, those are changed the indigenous language to Arabic. Persian, Iranian, they kept the language alive because of this book. So this is kind of considered as a national identity of the Iranians. And this book is not, it's archaic, because today's days that is all this uprising that happen in Iran, this is still in the conversation with its own people. Like, you don't find Greeks, they talk about Zeus or Pegasus in the new setting, but Iranian, they talk about this mythology in today's world.
Now
So,
we're looking at your computer if you want to
okay.
what you want to
So,
share.
let me go, I'm going to go very fast. I just was killing time to go to this one. So, in 2008, after spending over 11,000 hours of sitting, I create a new edition of the Shahnameh. This Shahnameh has 3 parts: epic, mythology, and history. I focus on the epic and mythological part, which is all epic part, which is all one family, like a Game of Thrones, but on a steroid. Yeah. So what I did actually, I illustrated almost 600 pages of illustrations, and what I did, I collected and put together over 8,000 pieces of miniature and lithograph from Mughal India to all the territory of Ottoman Empire. From late 14th century to mid 19th century. So every piece that you see is original piece, but every piece comes from somewhere in the history. So the reason I did that, because for the Western audience, I wanted to introduce this visual vocabulary, and also the people who are not close to the Metropolitan Museum, they can actually get to know and feel the essence of this epic and visual tradition. I also illustrate dreams and nightmares in Shahnameh, which is historically never been illustrated. We have a history of over 1,200 years of illustration and depiction of these stories. And this book is in very successful book, is in 9th printing. In fact, we are competing, according to my publisher, we're competing with the Red Book of Carl Jung and the 6th Book of Madonna. So I'm sitting between Madonna and Jung. So
Okay,
it's not a good place
to
to sit, yes. And this book, I create an audiobook for this, which is the 12 hours of sound design and sound effect. Basically, in this production, I illustrated with sound. I created 12 hours of sonic landscape of the epic, which is really fun. If you guys have Audible, it's nothing like it in the market. And I have Francis Ford Coppola read the introduction because he's familiar with the Shahnameh, and he saw my last show 3 times. And he fell in love with me, so just so we were friends, and he asked him to write this introduction because I told him I need the stamp of the white man of Fuva on my project, and he gladly did that. So that illustrations, later on I created pop-up book with that. I collaborated with Simon Arispe, who's a pop-up book engineer, and I drive him nuts. These people can talk about that when we work together. So we create this great pop-up book. This is like my illustrations, and these illustrations became into pop-up. Or this is one of the illustrations became this. So this is the book that we got the Magen Derfer Award for this. Specific in something, I'm telling you these things because it's all gonna encapsulated when it comes to the shadow theater and the production of the Sound of the North. One thing is very important in this story, that all the fold is also telling the story. When you open up and close, there is events happening in this opening and closing of these books. So after that, which is recently, we create Rostam. Rostam is like a Hercules of the Iranian epic. Based on this illustration, we again collaborate with Simon Arispe. We are in fact on October 1, we know if we get our second Magen Derfer, because right now we are in top 10 best pop-up book. So these are again the same era, same illustrations, and these are all, they have feathers, these are real feathers. So each book is actually original. These are all handmade books, by the way. There are around 1,000 people, to be exact, 860 something people sitting in Laos. Very well paid, by the way. It's not a sweatshop. So putting these books together by hand, one by one. I'm not gonna go let's go to the puppet show. So this is briefly. So I just want to let you know that how much love I have for the silhouette work. So I used to be graphic designer, and so my work was always somehow had a lot of silhouettes in it. My poster design thing. So somehow I drawn to this kind of form, and then I got introduced with the work of Lotte Reiniger, The Adventure of Prince Ahmed, which is from the 1001 Nights stories, which is wrongly, they call it Arabian Nights, which is not correct. It's called 1001 Nights. So I saw that and I fell in love. I said, okay, this is what I want to do in my life. I want to make something like that. So, but live. So I started making, again, puppets from that visual tradition, which I practice in my books. So from that illustrations, I create this puppet, and I create the story of the Serpent King, which I made the pop-up book, into the puppet show. And at that time, I sort of learned the working with the overheads. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna, because I used to do editing, a lot of editing I do, I used to make movies. That was previous lifetime, which we talk about it maybe in different setting. So I made 5 films, so I also edit movies. So I thought, okay, since we have this overhead, maybe I should put another overhead and mix them together and put them together and became like a cutting from one movie to another. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a new thing. And then I learned the work of manual cinema, which is like this technique on steroid. But I didn't know that. I thought, oh, I just, from the tracks on the editing program, I can create 2 sets of timeline at the same time and cut them together. So that show was kind of successful in New York, and I got introduced to someone at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, and said, okay, we want something bigger for our stage. And then I introduced the work of Larry Reed, and then I did a few workshops with him, and I learned his technique and his lighting setup, and I really fascinated. But being a good student, I was not very satisfied with what we had in Larry's setting, because we had 2 halogen light in the Larry's setting and sometimes 3 ones, and they have a dimmer, they go up and down, and then they project, and you have the story. But because I was into animation and cinema, so I wanted to make more cinematic.
Could we just explain who Larry Reed is
Oh, yes.
for those who don't? Who's an American shadow puppeteer based in San Francisco who studied wayang in Indonesia, like many Americans, came back and started his own version, Shadow Light Productions in San Francisco, and has been developing a lot of new techniques like Hamid referred to, with different types of halogen lights and so inspired by wayang, doing other things.
Yeah, very beautiful work, very theatrical, but I was more into more cinematic, and also, so I created the Feathers of Fire. Feathers of Fire, again, this comes from the Book of Kings, Shahnameh. It's one of the love story. And first thing I did, as always I do, create the story. For me, making the story is the most important things, because that's the one I think is driven force for the audience to sit down, to see and enjoy the show, and also something that, because we are dealing with the national identity of a culture, it needs to be as best as possible to introduce the whole new culture that is being bombarded by the negativity of this culture from the Battle of Salamis and the Marathon till now. So I'm trying to sort of
redress centuries
from the millennials, almost 2,500 years. so Zal and Rudabed, or the Feathers of Fire, is about the albino boy who born in the house of the Sun, which is the prominent knight of Iran, and he thought this is a demonic child, and he didn't want that child, he threw it away in the wilderness, and the magical bird came and took this child and grew as its own. It's like a jungle book, actually. And eventually he come back to the city, and he fell in love with the wrong person. Family of it's like a Romeo and Juliet, actually. Wrong family, and it's a lot of upheaval and the battles, and you will see the show. Feathers of Fire is online available, which started, and then in this show I learned how to research, and I find one particular projector that actually can produce animation. I can produce animation and project it and have a very sharp shadow when you're close to the lens. Because the problem with most of the projectors out there, you have to be very, very far away from the lens to create the shadow, and then you can very small, and you cannot create very dramatic effect that you want to do. So first thing, you have to storyboard the entire show, because unlike any other kind of theater, you have to have everything ready before you walk on stage for rehearsal. All the background, all the puppets, which light should have what puppets. All has to be defined and designed ahead of the time. Otherwise, it would not be possible. So one of the things I learned and I experienced in this show, which became like later in the Song of the North became more elaborated, is creating a cinematic effect. Like, for instance, traveling shots, zooming, tracking, tilting. These things it was not possible until then. But with for instance, this is a very simple track like of the animation. But when the puppet comes on top of this, you feel that the puppet actually grow this precision of for this army. Or for instance, in this case, here. You have lovers standing in the garden, and you want to zooming in. So you want to zoom in. So you create the animation first, that this is zooming in. And then when it's projected, and then when you have actors, when you are far away from the lens, so they are smaller. So when they are with this same speed of the animation, if they come and become closer to the light, so you feel the entire, you feel that they are now achieving what you want, achieving the cinematic setting, which is like a close-up, from the full shot to close-up. So these are just a sample, or for instance, this is an animation for when Seymour, the magical bird, is taking his son, Zal, bringing to earth, to the ground, to the earth.
Yeah.
So this is, you create this animation, which is all, again, all part of this animation comes from that book that I worked before. And then the result, which I'm going to show you shortly, it feels that, okay, the bird is actually floating in the air and it's coming down. So this is a mixture of the kind of live action, yes, with the animation. So in this technique, you feel that you actually, your location that's shooting the movie and your editing room and the theater that you're presenting the movie in one place. So you're making a movie live in the backstage. So let me give you a little bit of example of also the puppet design. All this puppet design also worked on the Song of the North and Feathers of Fire. It has a historical reference, like many of them from the coin from the Sassanid era. These are prehistoric dynasties. Or like for instance, this one, this is a coin, as you can see the below one at the top, it became this king. And then this is the puppet we created. And this is another coin. These are from like around like 1900 to 1800 years ago. Yeah. So that coin became this character, or this coin became this. Yeah. So and also I add this crystals because it's a soothsayer. It comes and tells stories as a crystal ball, and when it comes to stage with the animation in the background, it creates a very nice effect. Or this is a very famous depiction of the Darius the Great, and that's from that became this king. Or even a little thing is, look at this is a Phoenician ship that this ship became, which was in the service of the Achaemenid king, that became this ship. So everything you see in these puppets and this design is not something that I like to design in this way. These are all sort of has a roots in the history, and it's all because the Western audience to get to know this visual vocabulary. So, and then the mask. So these are the masks that characters wear. This is again the symbol of the bird. I learned this mask technique from Larry. Larry also developed this mask technique with his colleagues and many other puppeteers in Bali, I think in early 90s. And then I sort of took it away and then I create this mask for different characters. Also, there is another thing that is happening about the mechanics of this show, which we can also talk about it. This is because of making books. Because we have, in Feathers of Fire, we had 160 puppets. In the Song of the North, we have 483 puppets. So moving things around the backstage, it requires certain kind of organization. And so because of these pop-up books, actually I thought, okay, I'm going to create pages. Like each scene is the one page of the book. So that's why, and then we have a very good book. So this is my crew in the Feathers of Fire. Now let's, and then also the background, the design of the backgrounds, for instance, this one became that. Again, we performed 112 times the Song of the Feathers of Fire. We over around 120,000 audience worldwide. And it was very well received. In fact, except 4 shows in Los Angeles, we always sold out the show, which was really great, amazing. And it was before pandemic, because after pandemic, it's kind of changes. So let me give you a little bit of sample of the background.
It's for the best. That is where your fate is leading you.
So we have
I am
two sorts of
here.
lines that is constantly
I'll
coming
always
from one
be
to
with
another.
you.
This is the backstage. Audience sits the other side.
Whenever you are in need of me, dear Zal, burn one of these feathers, and I will come to you swifter than the wind, my child. Now let me give you one last ride, this time to the embrace of your father.
just look at around the light what's happening. So this works like a Swiss watch. So I'm going to go very fast. Actually, I'm going to skip this. This is another production I did with the Yo-Yo Ma's band. They wanted to do, basically is a lighting design and animation in the backstage. But let's move on to this. We go, okay. So whatever you saw, it was like picnic. It's just warm up for this one. This is 3 years in production. And this young fellows, they can expand on that, but I'm going to go a little bit over it. This is another love story from the Book of Kings. And again, I created 358, to be exact, storyboards before an early stage, after writing the story. And based on that, we created backgrounds, animated backgrounds. There is 208 animated backgrounds in this story, which you have 2 sources of light, which is translated to 104 stage for each light. And it's very, it's a shadow theater on steroid, you call it. So it's all this scene that you see is eventually translated into the animation and the action that this my fellow colleagues here, they can explain more. But because of the sophistication and the complexity of the story, it took a long time to actually prepare it, because you had to calculate how many puppets you need at each certain time of the story, so you don't mess up when you want to put things together and control the... I want to show you this one. This is one of the most difficult, I think, in terms of choreography of the show. This is the time that the young manager comes to meet Rustam. You will see him Thursday. And at the same time, he's incognito. He has to go to the different room to pick up something and put his insignia and give back to this young lady before he knows it, and give it to his beloved who was in captivity. So I want to just show you that hello. Oh, here we go. So this is the background for what you just saw. So we had to, this is actually it's actually 2 scenes. So each half of these is 1 scene in 1 stage, and then it moves to another stage. So in this particular place, the character has to move and stand in a certain part of the stage, so you don't actually see them, they're moving. But while their animation is going right on the stage right, and they have to move into the stage left. So, and then the other character has to come in. So the entire stage is walking in and walking back while the animation going back and forth. So this gives the illusion that is actually like a movie, which is really fun. This is at the beginning of my production. I thought this is like the weakest part of the show, and I worked so hard, and I think it's a really cool part of the show. It's a part of the show. I really like that. And also we have a lot of lace and curtains. It sits in the front, which Esme can explain. That actually sits in the front of the lights, and every time the characters pass through this scene, we blow into this curtain, and he feels that he's actually moving the curtain. It's really exciting, actually. Huh? It's that way. So anyway, let me show you the there is, what is this? No, that's too much. Yes, let's pass. Oh, yeah, let's have a discussion and then we can go over it.
And we should add that we hope that everyone will come to the performance of Song of the North this Thursday at 7:30 at Jorgensen Center for the Performing Arts, which will be followed by a discussion with Hamid and the cast. And are you also going to show the backstage film?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there'll be a film of the backstage.
I have a little bit of backstage film here if you want, but let's talk about it and then we can.
Thank you, Hamid,
Yes.
for this very brief introduction for this huge body
I-
of work.
Yes, I did my best to go as coherent as possible.
And yeah, and one of the exciting things for me, because I think I saw Feathers of Fire in Chicago, the Chicago Festival, which is before our colleagues from UConn were working with
Right.
you. So, and I had just different whatever relationships or knowledge of the work of your colleagues here. So I thought maybe we could just ask Esme and all of you, Esme Harrison and Ray, what you're doing in Song of the North. I guess we don't have to ask you to talk about UConn, that's okay. But what are you doing, and if you can elaborate with us what it's been like to come into this work with Hamid a little bit. I'm thinking you're probably doing different jobs in the show, so maybe starting with Esme, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I was originally hired onto Song of the North as a builder. So I think you heard Hamid mention that there's 483 puppets in the show. Not all of them are mechanized, but many of them are. So my first responsibility was to sort of figure out, like, I don't know, you would sort of tell me, I want this puppet to do this, and then I would then figure out how to make the puppet do that. I don't know, that's what puppetry is, right? In addition to that, I then later on became one of the puppeteers and performers in the show. So I think in a lot of ways, you're coming into this huge, enormous body of work and this incredibly complicated, I don't know, mess of puppets, and so to sort of wrangle that in was really overwhelming, but also really, really incredible because it's something that is there's so much detail and there's so much happening, and it's like nothing else I ever did before, so really cool.
Is there something that's been surprising or unexpected that you've learned how to do, or that maybe was different from your experience with puppetry at UConn, or I don't know. What's it been like? What's been your learning curve, if that's the right term?
I mean, I think I learned a lot just from working on the show through trial and error. Yeah, I mean, I think the scale, just the scale of everything was unlike anything I had ever done before. So it was really interesting challenge to then take that on and then to accomplish that was really wonderful.
Yeah, so you were mentioning.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's very surprising character. You will surprise in every turn with Esme, because first he came introduced by Ray to come as a puppet builder, and then at some point I thought, okay, Esme, do you want to come and do some puppets? Yeah, I'd love to. And then said, I need the actors for this part. Do you want to act here? And then every turn it was just like, oh my God, this is great, and you will see and you will be the judge. So it was a great experience to working with him, and also, I think because it's a live show and it's a lot of things can go wrong in every moment, but the fact is people, they put them together is every night, it's just like a miracle. And seriously, I mean, I usually leave the stage because I'm on anxiety. I have something going to go wrong and it's going to break or not going to work. I leave so I don't witness anything. But I think every night is a surprise even for them. And because it's for this 83-minute show, it's, as I said, it's like a Swiss watch. Everything has to work together. And one thing goes wrong, first of all, you will notice. Second, it can affect other chain of command basically into the show, because it will happen before, like the first thing in the show doesn't go right, and the whole rest of the show they are speaking wrong. So it's a lot of details and risks involved.
Sorry, I wanted to ask, like, imagining the show and thinking of the amazing images that Hamid shared with us. What exactly do you do? Do you do like shadow puppets and then shadow masks, switching back and forth? Do you use some characters consistently through the show? Are you doing other things as well? What's your running around backstage like?
The first thing that I do when we load in is I assemble all the mechanized puppets together. So a lot of the ones that are really complicated, they're sort of built off of milk crates and popcorn machines and a lot of random stuff. That's sort of my corner that I like to take charge. Mostly I do puppetry. I'm rolling around on the mat with the handheld puppets. But I do a few masked characters as well. I don't do a lot of mask work in the show, but all the side characters I do. So it's like 3 prison guards and Zal, who's one of the main character of Feathers of Fire, was a cameo character in this.
And also organization. Everyone does organization because that's another choreography that we have, which is invisible to the audience. How they actually organize these puppets and mechanics together with you, so everything's ready for the next person to sit down and then pack.
Is it like a bit sort of a backstage choreography?
Yes.
The
Maybe
tray
we
ballet.
could turn to
The tray ballet.
the what ballet?
The tray ballet.
Maybe we could turn to Harrison, because like I know you as a puppeteer, but I know you had a background in acting, and then now you're doing this. What are you doing, and how did you come to it, and what do you think
Sure.
of it?
Yeah, I left UConn in 2012 with my undergrad degree in acting. And when I was here, the program was very heavily rooted, at least on the movement side, with mask work. So I took Bart's mask class at the Puppet Complex when I was here, and a couple other classes, and I really found myself at the puppet studio with other puppeteers. And at some point after moving to New York, I just felt like I needed to be doing that. So I went and saw a show that an alumni was in, and it was one of John Bell's shows with Great Small Works. And I just met Stephen Kaplan, got a job, and started working in shadow theater. And doing shadow theater for the last 7 years, I ran into Hamid a few times, and when I heard he was doing Song of the North, I cornered him at a puppet festival in a 10-foot puppet. And I was like, yeah, so I was like, what are you working on? And then, we talked, and I found my way into this ensemble in the character of Gorgine, who is a masked character, so I do all of his masked scenes, and I also puppeteer with his handheld puppets. A lot of other puppeteers in the show also handle his handheld puppets. And so yeah, I'm backstage doing the musicians and side characters, and I do the big Akvan demon at the end, and who's built he's a very big puppet who stands on a milk crate. I mean, so I run around going from puppeteering on the floor to making entrances all over the place, sometimes very quick. I'll have to throw the mask on and off and make sure I don't stab myself with the dagger on my belt. And so it's great. All the movement work I did while I was here and loved to do, and the mask work and the puppet work. So it all kind of came together in the show, and I wanted to be part of it.
Ray, we knew you, I think, because you started doing tech work for us, but then you designed this exhibition I
I'm from New York, I emailed you. And I was like, what do I do now?
Actually, you introduced me.
Yeah. No, it's thanks to John.
So what I realized I don't know what you do in this production, and what's that like, and how did you come to it?
I was actually the first person to join the team, and now I'm thinking I haven't thought about this in a while, but our first day I just
6
showed
months
up.
before.
Yeah, it was just us for a while, and then Esme joined pretty shortly after I started. But it was just like I get in there, and it was like huge cardboard boxes full of like hundreds of folders, full of hundreds of puppets, and it was like, all right, so if we need this puppet, like what Hamid had mentioned a bit earlier, if we need this puppet for this scene, and we need it again for this scene, we're gonna have to make two, because it's much easier to make another puppet than it is to, in the middle of the show, scramble to like move it from this tray to this tray, and so it was a lot of just thinking through and organizing and figuring out how the thing was really going to happen. I mean, Hamid did a lot of that work, but I was just there to kind of facilitate that. And yeah, we needed a builder. We brought on Esme. We were building for a while, and then we started the rehearsal process. And I wasn't sure that I would be touring with all of them until we were a couple months into the rehearsal process, and we just were short, like, one pair of hands for like this scene and like this scene, and like it was like, okay, Ray, just like get in there, like it was like and I was lucky enough to be brought on and do a little bit of puppeteering during the show, but mostly I am in charge of making sure that everything is in its place, making sure that if something does go wrong, that it is fixed as quickly as possible.
Ray's like the hand that appears in the dark, like, and is there to help.
Yeah, and then I did make a lot of the costumes, and I maintained the costumes, which is a big job because they get quite beat up in the process of what we do. But I'm dressing people backstage, I'm handing people things backstage, I'm watching everyone and making sure things are moving the correct way.
What's your title?
I'm company manager, but I do a lot of stuff.
One of the things that struck me, thinking of Hamid talking earlier about manual cinema, which is, as you mentioned, this really innovative shadow theater performance using a variety of different techniques, is that the scale of Song of the North and Feathers of Fire is so huge. It's like CinemaScope. And looking at those photos backstage, it's a very large area that you're working on. Like the last shadow show I did, we were sitting by two overhead projectors, and like, it's pretty contained. And this seems really huge. So I wonder what that's like. I think what you get is this huge cinematic experience that Hamid is talking about, but I don't know, how does that connect to your own experiences or ideas of theater or puppet theater? How does it work? Harrison?
Great deal of athleticism.
Yeah, it's kind of been nice because, like you just said, John, most of the shadow puppet shows I've done in the last since I started doing it have been hovering over overhead projectors or being stuck behind a small screen and being very sedentary. And so being part of this show, it was really nice to get back into my body and like run around for 80 minutes each time I get into costume. So it keeps me, like, I feel healthy doing it. Maybe my back doesn't, but that's why you guys stretch. But yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to play in a space that big, and also to just be, you're back there, and it's just with your team. Like, we don't sense the audience half the time. We're just there together, and it's a really cool room to be in.
Yeah, actually, when I was working with my composer, I was constantly telling him, just like, this music is not for the audience, this music is for my crew in the back, because they're isolated and they have to enjoy this show when they're alone. So we have to create a sonic landscape that the crew would really enjoy, which I think the show has a very good sound, and the music is really fun. So we're in the backstage. It's fun. You are isolated and this music is pumping as you are kind of, I mean, they are. As I said, I'm usually leave.
And the music's on Spotify.
But the good thing is the crew has a very good harmony together. And that's why this show, it can come the way it is. We are have a very good harmony together, which is, it's hard. 10 people, 10 artists, 10 neurotic, artists together. It's sometimes it's complicated, but we knock on wood. We find our groove and we move very amicably, what do you call it, and harmonious.
Were you about to say something? Yes?
I was just going to say it's really wonderful that we have the crew that we do, where I feel like everyone in a show like this, where it's like so fast paced and so much and so quick, like the way we're able to like move around and read each other's minds and just like, I don't know, it really does not feel real. Yeah, I feel like if we didn't understand each other as well as we do.
This scene you see is the beginning of the show. Start with you are in the middle of a war. So this is like 20 seconds, and this 20 seconds there is close to 38 puppets performed. So you have to imagine what is gonna happen. That's you go to this war. So
Yeah, I think to touch back on just like the crew that we have, every puppeteer in the show comes from some different background in their own style, or like maybe we have one who's more into like dancing and choreography. So everyone's just bringing a really like interesting flavor, just in like a social sense in the back too, and we could talk about like playing like our lovebirds in the show are like came in as a couple, so there's just
they got married last week.
yeah, but
And they're actually in the show. It's like a Bijan and Manager, the lovers in the book in the show. Now they're actually married.
there's chemistry, and yeah, I feel love that there.
One thing that strikes me from what you were saying earlier is your route into puppet theater. Something I think about with some puppet artists, like I think of Janie Geyser, for example. She came into the form from visual art background, and I don't know where manual cinema came into it, but you coming in from I want to say visual art background, and then all of a sudden you're working with a group of 10 people who are running around backstage, and you're organizing a company of performing artists that, and you had to learn or figure out or invent, it seems to me, your own way of doing shadow puppet theater.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you, and what has it been like to, in my mind, shift into having a company of 10 performers in this huge spectacle? That's different from doing painting.
No, I did graphic design, and then I started making movies. So I made like fiction films inside the prison. I had a crew of like 55 people.
Is this in Iran?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but the thing is about the movie, you go to hell to make me a movie and it's finished. But in the theater, you go to hell to make me it, and every time you go travel, and it's just like, it's a lot of, it's a lot of things. So every time you're making it.
Back
It's
to hell.
not the hell, it's not the figure of speech, you know what I'm talking about. It means that the complexity of it is constantly there. But in the movie, once you go through let's say 30 days of shooting, and you finished. But here, first of all, like we were together for 12 weeks for just performing for rehearsal, because there are over 2,000 cues performed in these 83 minutes. So this is it's enormous amount of understanding and harmony has to be between us to actually work, because I'm there as I have a few metaphor of my work. I'm gardener and actually shoveling the ground to make sure the water goes in the right direction, right trees. And also, I'm at the same time I have to be a commander. So these things has to be done in such a way that we can all be basically eventually, because all one goal is to perform this as best as possible. And also, this is something, it's not just art, it's also is a cultural endeavor, which is artistically is being done. So it's not just, we like usually, like artists, they make an art, it's great, but that's, the eventually goes to the house of the collector or the museum and it's done, or a lot of theatrical work is the work of that artist, they want to express themselves, it's great. But this work, they are talking to introducing a different culture to the whole new audience. And that's very different. So I think they recognize that they are engaging in something very novel and is affecting the society, at least a little bit. You're adding a color to the fabric of this American society. And I think it's something very unique about this project. And we all have this understanding that we are reunited and we work together and they can sort of work with me.
What's been your experience with what Hamid's talking about, being in Persian culture and this, creating these epic Persian shadow shows? You've been performing in Europe and Latin America and across the country. What's your experience of that been like?
People are incredibly receptive to the story across all cultures, and actually, especially in Europe. I mean, I don't know if that's just like culturally that an appreciation for puppetry that's there more, but yeah, people have really enjoyed and have been able to relate to this story, even if it is not within their cultural frames.
I was thinking about creating movements, and I know different kinds of directors approach puppet movement differently. Like, how did you develop your movement vocabulary with the puppets? Do you have a very clear idea of what the puppets do when you build them? Or is there improvisation when you spent 12 weeks, which is an amazing amount of time to rehearse for a lot of us? When what was that development process like? Was it really clear in your mind, this is exactly what I want to do, and you collaborators are helping make that happen? How do you look at that, or how was your experience with that?
Okay, mixture. Because there's a lot of puppets and a lot of moving parts, I have a very clear idea how it's going to happen. Specifically, even you're writing the story, you have an idea where the character has to leave to cut to the next scene. Because you know how it is, like for instance in this, let me go to this, I'm just going to give you some background so you see the stage. So, because you have two sources of light, so if you have to kind of understand where to story this character who is standing next to the screen has to leave so he can cut to the other light so it doesn't cast a shadow. So this is one first step. So when you're writing it, you have this in mind, how to put them together.
That's a very technical question.
Oh, how the movement.
Like in terms of the light and... Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Because it's all connected together.
Yeah.
Because and then there is also when you're, for instance, if the characters move from the stage left, and then immediately you cut him to running on the stage right, it's not possible to run around the screen to go to the other side. In the movie, you cut, he comes to the other side. But here you have to calculate, okay, now we need the puppet. So, now back to your questions. So, because we want to make a cinematic move, I kind of tend to create a movement that is more cinematic and more real. But when they're going back and forth, that requires when they have to leave the light and based on that, you basically direct the movement. So this is they're talking about the human interaction. So this movement that they have in this triangle, which is a beam of light, from, let me see if I have any picture from the floor. Oh, here we go. See this light you see, there's a green light.
The green lines here.
Green light is actually the axis of that is the light source.
So
and
if you're inside those green lines, you're in the light.
If you're closer to the screen, you're in both lights. Yeah. So somehow you have to move out so you can cut to the other light. Otherwise, the shadow casts on the fallen light. So this is basically you're bound to the physics of light. Right. Some of the stuff you can, a lot of things you want to do and you cannot do. Or sometimes you trick them, like the audience, you create some block front of the light. So you cut to actually a moving image. So in the following scene, you have maybe a rock, and then that when it goes to the following scene, the rock is casting a shadow to the following previous scene that the character is very next to the screen. So and then you move the rock, move the animation, and the character also move away from the. So these are kind of dictated with this limitation we have. In terms of the puppetry, I kind of inspired by the work of Balinese, Ryan, and some of them, like for instance here you can see the design of this circular or these fans that they're opening and closing. These are all basically also dictated by the story, how the story moves and how these puppets move around. But my tend to make it as cinematic as like when you're watching a movie.
I think for me, like looking at this, and I think visiting backstage from Feathers of Fire, you know, there's so much. I mean, for me, puppetry is like technology anyway. It's like, and then this has a lot of different layers of technology. The digital projections, your digital animations, and then the sort of direct shadow puppet stuff, and the shadow masks, the different types of light, and the cueing. It's a really interesting interaction. It seems to me way of performing with different types of technology and different types of objects.
And most of these defined in the storyboard before even I hire anybody. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, when I do the storyboard, I have what I have in mind. So because that's also save time. Otherwise, these 12 weeks became 12 months. So you know exactly, okay, this is going there, and then the puppets comes here, and they go cut here, and then you go here, and you have like, for instance, the first, let's say, go for instance here. See, these are before I create the background. So you know you have an over shoulder, and then they're talking, walking, and then these are moving away from you the backstage, and then you stand on this fork in the line, and then you have a close up this character, and then he's leaving. You know, just like you have all these things beforehand, and then based on that you create the animation, the background, and the puppets. And the puppeteers is sort of trying to imitate that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's like we kind of, as the mass performer, we try to meet the puppets, and as a puppeteer, we try to meet the mass performer. So there's this space that we try to find in the middle where, you know, as a performer, when I'm moving, I don't want to like be too robotic, but I also still want people to kind of feel like I'm a shadow figure and kind of forget my body. And then, you know, try to make the puppets communicate in a cinematic, like real actor way as much as we can too. It's like this blend that we're searching for as we're taking this 80-minute journey back there.
Are there questions from the audience here or from online audience? Yes, Abigail, yes.
How do you determine what should be a puppet and what should be an actor as a designer?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Oh yeah. repeating the question for the audience at home. How do you determine what should be a puppet and what should be an actor? That's what you said. Thank you. Excuse me.
Yeah. Some of them is, again, dictated by the choreography of the scene, as I just explained. If the characters leave on the stage left and you cut the characters, for instance, running, it's impossible that the character goes to this huge stage, go back again, running in. So you have to create puppets for the following one, which is imitate that guy is running, and then cut. Then you have enough time. Basically, these are also calculation that what's the length of that scene would be. So the length of the scene is in my mind. Okay, this guy is moving from this way to that movement. So you have the scene for like 5 seconds of running, and then cut back to the actual characters to move. So this is some of them like that. Some of them, it's you feel that the character has to have a lot of movement, emotions. So you feel that it's better to have a person, because the puppets is limited, especially maybe especially shadow puppets. You know, if you have like a different kind of marionettes, maybe they have a lot of movement and you're in the 3D space. But this is because of the silhouette, you feel okay. It's better to have a human. Or for instance, some cases like in this, I have a scene that they play polo, so you cannot have a horse on or a human playing polo. So you make those other.
But then we could do the close-up.
And then, yes,
the human.
and the close-up in the human. Yeah, you basically have a puppet, and then you have same mask, same coloring and everything, even same expression, and then you cut to the human. So again, back to the puppet.
Can I ask just a follow-up question that
Yeah.
relates to that, which is, what do you think the benefits are of animation and puppetry and humans? Like what are the rules and boundaries of each thing, each art form, that makes them strong as a choice to put together or not to put together?
You mean what's the benefit of it? You mean like what I'm doing?
Yeah, like why animation? Like this could all be a film,
Yes,
or it could all be on stage.
that's very correct. You can all be seen, but have you seen any of the show Feathers of Fire, or have you seen some of the North?
I'm familiar with it. I mean,
No, have you seen it live?
no.
Okay, you have to see it live. Because the effect is really mesmerizing. When you see this is not being done before and it's live, and this is a human actually is making that.
Yes.
So, and also it's a technique that has never been done before. You feel that there's something very unique about it, that you're actually making a movie as you go. So it's something that's very novel about it. You know, I have a recording of the Feathers of Fire. You can see it, but it doesn't work. Yeah, but when you see it live, you are encapsulating and engulfing with that image, and you know there's a human being, there's a puppet, and also one thing I have to tell you, and that's what actually make me to do this work, because first of all, we're living in the society, the era that you have a DC comic, and then you have these action movies, and your attention span is different. So usually when you see puppet show, I think this is for me. After like shadow theater, if it's too long, usually you get a little bit bored, because your brain detects what's happening in the backstage. So you know this is a puppet, this is I'm talking about the conventional the shadow puppet. Basically your brain decoding what's happening there, and in most of the time, for me, 20 minutes, I'm off. I get. But in this show, you're constantly introducing the audience with the new things that they cannot make their brain around it. That, oh, what is this? How is this happening? How they did that? So you're on the edge of your seat, and also the story itself. That's another story. But technically, but to tell you the truth, I think when you make animation, you have much larger audience, but also it's maybe 200 times more expensive than the effect that you get in this one. These are, by the way, these are very expensive productions. They are like, I don't think, like if you go to the scale of Lion King and things in Broadway, but these are close to that. This is, unfortunately, we are not getting a Broadway show, but this is the same amount of work and the money goes through to produce this kind of work. And also, we don't get any publicity as like that, especially in America, is zero. All the publicity we get from these shows in France or Europe.
Harrison, were you about to say something too? Or am I just misreading you?
I think I was going to, he ended up touching on my thought.
Other question? Yes, you had a question. Yeah.
I had two questions about the Shahnameh. You can just pick your fave. I was curious, given the history it has with the Persian language, its importance with the Persian language, is it contentious at all to be translating it into other languages and performing them in other languages? And then you also mentioned that it's like taken on a new meaning in the Iranian Revolution. I'm just curious.
So there are two questions. The first is about the language of the Shahnameh Persian, and is it controversial or to translate the Persian into a different language? And the second question is about kind of the situation of this work in terms of the Iranian Revolution.
Okay, both. Okay, so if you want to expand and introduce your culture, especially when you migrated to your host country, you need to speak with the language of your host country to learn. Otherwise, if I make this in Persian, how many people are going to come see it? No, it's like, look at Mulan. If Mulan was Chinese, the Disney making Mulan in Chinese, how many Americans would go see Mulan? Or imagine the Hercules was in Greek, nobody would go see it. So you have to change these things to the different language so actually become accessible, so people can enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, we enjoy reading it in the original language. Yes, has another feeling, but you want to share that enjoyment and those stories to other people. Otherwise, we can encapsulate it only for very limited number of Iranian. Especially my work is not being really watched by Iranian. My work is like 90% of my audience are not Iranian. Even my books, I would say 60% of my buyers are non-Iranian. So I'm not. It's very. Actually, I'm standing in a very complex place because for Americans, I don't get publicity because they're only looking at Iran as an issue or political round. That's why I don't get any writing. Even puppeteering world, they don't write for me. It means nobody writes for me. I mean, if I go to France, I get a lot of writers. But in America, it's a very strange place. I don't get any publicity. For Iranian, they don't come see it because either it's English or they don't even care about promoting the culture. Anyway, that's a very complicated question you just touched. The other one about the revolution, Shahnameh is an alive text, as I said. It's maybe the only epic tradition that still is in conversation with its own people. Like a reference to the many mythological tyrants in the Shahnameh in the uprising, creating a lot of slogan based on these books. Or like a lot of stories in the Shahnameh very similar to this woman life freedom movement. So even this clipping the hair that you've seen, all of it in news is all kept in this book. So it's something that is people engaged with. It's very alive piece, which is amazing. After thousands of years, this epic tradition is still in conversation. Look at the Human of New York. Human of New York. They're running the 54 stories about this gentleman, old guy, who's person whose whole life is around Shahnameh. I mean, it's amazing. So, and as I said, this is also stories that I can, because my training based in visual art, graphic design, things like that. Shahnameh is the vehicle to carry all these visual that's why I chose shaman.
Could this work? Or would you show this work in Iran, or is it controversial now in Iran? It's because it's about a classic Persian culture. So in that way,
I haven't been in Iran for 17 years, and I'd rather not to go because I don't want to make a risk. But also, I don't think it's, people. I love to go to Iran to perform anything. I love that. But the thing is, for now, the way like people in the backstage, I don't think you can actually perform that way because these people are wearing leotard, very contour, all shows for the shadows. Imagine for an Islamic Republic, you want to have these things that it's I don't want to get them arrested. I'm not going to go. If they're invited, they can go. I'm not coming with you guys. You're on your own. But yeah, unfortunately, no. I mean, the Feathers of Fire is actually a whole story happened in Kabul, which I thought it would be actually great to go actually to Kabul to perform that.
great. Other questions? Other jumping in? Yes.
That's may hinted at learning new skills. Did you have to unlearn any of your puppetry skills to integrate into what you're doing in the production?
That's a great question. I mean, I feel like I was told in puppet school not to work with recorded tracks. But there are pros and cons to both. I don't know, I think I definitely learned more than I unlearned. Yeah, it's all in there.
Yes, Reed.
At what stage did you bring the musician in? Did you sort of have your sort of rehearsal tracks, and then did you have the live musicians aiding you for the cue points or puncture points for the performers? And then how did he compose such a perfect track to it with you?
So the question is, how did the music come in?
At what stage?
And at what stage?
Support did you have to make it work?
And what support did you have to make work? The music coming into the show.
Yeah.
First of all, you can go to Spotify and listen to the Song of the North soundtrack. It's really amazing. So there is a whole new process that I even touched in this conversation. That how this show it's put together actually before coming on stage. After building everything, backgrounds, I create a movie in the premiere, for instance, without actors, without puppets, and I time it. So based on that movie, I sound design. Based on that sound design, I sit down with the voice actors and record the voices, and basically that's also direct them, which is one of the things, because that also affects how they can act, because that nuances that the person who's having a dialogue, the way they're delivering the dialogue, are like going quiet, going loud, going passionate, going sad. These are all going to reflect it because they have to follow that basically direction that is being done, given to the voice actor. So these are done. We get the voice, we get the things, and I put them together, and I have the entire show without actors and without music. And that timing goes to the composer. And the composer, the way I compose, I usually, myself, when I start a project, I start with the music. I first hear this music of the project, and then I start writing and doing everything. Before everything, I find music that goes with the project. So, and then I collect them. And then when I start writing them, and I make a note, okay, this scene probably that kind of music, and I collect and create the whole time. What do you call it? Music.
Score.
No. What do you the Spotify you create or
Playlist.
Playlist. Thank you.
Playlist.
I drove 6 hours away from New York to here. Anyway, it's a playlist. So I create a playlist for all the scenes, and that I give it to the composer. And my composer Ramin, we worked together before, and we are we are like a machine. We really know each other's, and we don't need to actually speak too much. I just say, okay, Rami, this is what I want. This is it. And he composes, come back. Okay, I don't like this part. Maybe you should move it like this. And then also, I give them note. Say this area, I want the characters in the movie does something. So can we create some kind of cue, like boom or something? And sometimes we kind of hidden. We have a hidden note somewhere here and there. So it is there for the when we are actually practicing. Now it's part of the routine. So that's how it's very complex project. You guys in this world, I'm not. I don't know. Is there any project in this complexity actually made? Because as I said, when you just mentioned about the dialogue, I just remember. So yes, I create the whole movie first. Figure out actors, puppeteers, and then time it. Timing is very important. And then timing it, and then dialogue.
We have room for a few more questions.
Just to follow up on that, when I was working with you on laser cutting the puppets, you had all of the video done, all of the music scored, and then we were doing
Kevin, who worked on laser cutting the puppets, said when he was working on that, all of the video was done, all of the music was done, just to share this.
Yeah, Hamid was, I think, on the final edits of the music. He said we were meeting with him.
Hamid was doing the final edits of the music. Excuse me. Are there questions from? Yeah, go ahead, Harrison.
As someone who had to come in and like work from that, like the fact that there was already a mastered audio track already made that was like planned and thought through and worked on and really hammered down. So coming in from an experience of not working that way, and where maybe if it's new music, in a new piece, like working together with musicians, or us doing our thing and the musicians taking a film version of what we set up and then scoring to that. It was a really interesting experience, and there's definitely some moments as the mask performer where I'm standing there and just like kind of confused, and it made the work really challenging to try to sync up to this person. I don't know how they recorded the actor doing the voice work. Maybe he was sitting and just speaking, so standing up and having my body projected onto the screen. It's like, how do I do this? And sometimes like the speech is a little faster than my body wants to work, or so it's. But I had to step up and find it and make it work for me and make it feel natural. And it took time. It took a lot of time. Hamid will tell you how much time it took for me to figure it out. But
we're still working on it.
We're still working on it. I've done this. We've been touring it for like 2 years now. Anyways, no, but like it's hard. It's a challenge way to do it, but it's also kind of nice. It was kind of nice that, and I mean, it just sounds so good, and the music really helped all of us just embrace the work and the piece.
Do we have a question from the online world?
Yes.
Yes.
Our friend Mary wants to know, she's asking what people enjoyed, specifically the cast members. What have you enjoyed? So I'm thinking, can you say maybe what is the one thing that you've enjoyed the most working on this project?
What is the one thing you've enjoyed the most working on the project? How about starting with Ray?
Being able to travel and see parts of the world that I've not been able to afford to see. Mostly, yeah.
Well, I would have said that, but I mean, it's really great to just roll up for work, and it's a lot of work, but to be able to also kind of just like roll around the floor and wear sweatpants and just like, play. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I think it's been incredibly gratifying to find a job in my field. But I mean that's like so sincerely to work so hard at something that I love and that I went to school for. And I think it's amazing how many jobs and how many opportunities that you've created and that this show has created. So I feel really grateful to be a part of it.
We overall we had 46 people working on this project in 3 years. And I hired 46 people, various different.
And what's the most fun for you? You're saying you run away back during the show because you're stressed out or something.
No, I burnt out in this show. I poured everything I had in this show. I think I learned something. Actually, will is expendable. Like you cannot create will in you, which is whatever you hide. I feel I pour everything into this show, and sometimes I feel like, oh my God, but when I'm working with these people, I really have a good time, and I think I encourage if you can come see the backstage, because backstage is just heaven in the moment that they're creating. Especially, I usually leave, but sometimes I come back and just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and then go back. But I think when they're creating it, that sometimes I'm awed at, oh my God, this is really actually happening, because it's sometimes, honestly, when I was creating this, sometimes I couldn't sleep because I was so scared that how I'm going to put these things together. And once in the middle of this, I had some pain in my head, and I went to the MRI, and I went to this machine. So, and I thought, it's just like, if people can make this take a brain, show my brain, I can make a puppet show, right? It's not really. So it was I was constantly encouraging myself. But when it's finished, it's really, watching them perform is really amazing. Also decoding, sometimes you, like for instance, you come up with some ideas, maybe we should do that, and then it works. It's just like that scene, they're moving in the Rostam tent. It's just so gratifying. Also working with the composer, which usually with all my works throughout my life, I had a very good relationship with my composers, and particularly with Rami, it's very joyful to work with him, and I really love it. And that's why.
I think we're coming to the end of this, but I know Will had a question earlier.
I was wondering, you were saying, I mean, that it's very important for you to convey, this thing that is so integral to Iranian culture accurately. And I was wondering, how do you balance that with how do you balance the accuracy with making it palatable for an audience that might not understand it if it's entirely faithful, and also what you want to do, the departures you want to make?
So the question is, how do you balance presenting something that accurately about Iranian culture with connecting with an audience, more or less?
First of all, in terms of the story, is based on the Shahnameh. So it's not exactly like Shahnameh, because Shahnameh is written for people with a different set of standards and ideas and speed in life for 1,000 years ago. Now we're in the 21st century, we have a different culture. So I adopt this for the 21st century audience, which is very important. But the way I adopt it is adopted within the realm of the epic and mythology. So I'm still in that sort of realm, but I don't claim that this is exactly from the Shahnameh. It's based on the Shahnameh. Like for instance, in this story, there are 2 different stories, actually 3 different stories mixed together to become one story. So, and also, I'm very well versed about the visual culture of Iran. I grew up there and my work, so and I did a lot of research during the creation of that book. It was, as I said, it was close to 11,000 hours of sitting and working. So all this stuff, this body of work that I'm creating comes from that research. And that, did I answer your question?
I think.
Yeah. But the last part of the question was forgot. What is this?
Oh, I was just wondering, how do you, of course, there's what you do to make the audience, to make it work for the audience, but, departures that you want to make. I mean, how do you balance faithfulness and
the fact, the fact my work is very well seen, the books is going and penetrating to the, people who are not American. Like, for instance, when we had the show at New York last time, I went to this school called St. Anne. You know St. Anne School? Yeah. So I went to give them a poster to invite some people to come see the show. These kids are like 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th graders. And I was kind of talking to the security guard, said, I want to put this one, this is really fun show. And there was a lady passed, American, and just like, are you Mr. Rahmanian? I said, yeah. She said, come with me, oh my God. So he took me to his class, and these 4th graders, and they have my books, and they have, they said the last 2 years, instead of going through Shakespeare, we were tired, we were looking for something else. So we found your book, and they're illustrating from my book, and these kids around me, just like little kids, just like they knew Seymour, they knew Zol, they knew Rosen, just like, I started crying, just like, oh my God. So it's finding its place. Even Greek mythology that everybody knows that is the effort of somebody named Edith Hamilton in the 1940s. He actually adopted the Greek mythology for like what I did for Shahnameh. Because before 1940s, it's for the elite. Go to the PhD level, you learn about Greek mythology. Now it's everywhere. So this lady, Edith Hamilton, which the edition is still in print, which is a beautiful edition, he made the Greek mythology popular in America. So now I think this is, and Shahnameh is very grand and it's so beautiful. Like, I don't know, you guys read like Norse mythology? I just finished Game in Norse mythology. It's not even compared to Shahnameh. It's so shallow. I mean, thank Hollywood to make this Norse mythology so grand everywhere there. But it's not even, Shahnameh is so beautiful, so grand, and so human, so much lessons, so much, this level of sophistication in this text is just beyond anything else. But it's not been popularized because most of the time just in the clause of the academic. So it's only 35 people go to school to learn about this, the thing that they really love to learn about Persian mythology. But in this way, you make it accessible so people can learn about these beautiful stories.
Thank you. I think we should close. There'll be opportunities to ask more questions and talk with Hamid and cast members here Thursday evening after the performance of Song of the North. What an amazing work the four of you have talked about. I'm struck by what you're talking about in terms of Greek mythology and this the importance of the work you're doing to share this important Persian culture with the world, which has a hard time dealing with Iran and the history of Persian culture. So this work you're all doing is very important. So thank you all. Thanks to the audience here. Thanks to the people on the Facebooks. And we hope you'll come back to the Ballard Institute. And thank you again.